Hi everyone, my name is Lauren and I'm going to be teaching you about aneurysms. So what is an aneurysm? Arteries carry blood under great pressure and their walls are adapted to handle that pressure. Occasionally, there is a weakening of the elastic components of the tunics. This results in an aneurysm. An aneurysm is a bulge or ballooning in the weakened wall of an artery. Most aneurysms are asymptomatic and therefore are difficult to diagnose. There are different forms of aneurysms, which are true, dissecting, and false. So in a true aneurysm, the aneurysm is bound by all three layers of the vessel wall. A dissecting aneurysm is an aneurysm in which the wall of an artery rips longitudinally. In a false aneurysm, there is a breach in the vessel wall such that the blood leaks through the wall and is contained by the surrounding perivascular soft tissue. The risk of rupture is higher than that of a true aneurysm and generally requires treatment. So now we're going to talk about the most common types of aneurysms. An aortic aneurysm occurs in the major artery, the aorta of the heart. There are two different types: abdominal aortic aneurysms and thoracic aortic aneurysms. There are also cerebral aneurysms, which occur in the brain. Popliteal aneurysms occur in the leg behind the knee. Mesenteric artery aneurysms occur in the intestines. And then there's a splenic artery aneurysm, and that obviously occurs in the spleen. So there are a few risk factors when talking about aneurysms, and they can be family history, hypertension, high cholesterol, obesity, smoking, polycystic kidney disease, and also your age is a risk factor. There also is if you had an injury from a trauma or a fall that can put you in risk of having an aneurysm. Also drug abuse and genetic conditions. The most common genetic condition associated with aneurysms is Marfan syndrome. Marfan syndrome is an inherited condition caused by the production of an abnormally weak form of fibrillin, a glycoprotein that gives strength and elastic to connective tissues. The most serious consequence of this syndrome involve the cardiovascular system. The most dangerous possibility is the weakening of elastic connective tissues in the wall of major arteries, which may cause them to burst, causing a sudden major loss of blood. So next we're going to be talking about aortic aneurysms. Abdominal aortic aneurysms occur when the aorta becomes abnormally large or balloons outward. Symptoms of abdominal aortic aneurysms may include severe, sudden, persistent, or constant pain in the abdomen or back, clammy skin, dizziness, nausea and vomiting, and rapid heart rate. Treatment of this is if an abdominal aortic aneurysm ruptures, it is a medical emergency and requires surgery immediately. Only about 20% of patients will survive. If you have bleeding inside your body from an aortic aneurysm, you will require surgery right away. There are two types of surgery for abdominal aortic aneurysms. On the other hand, a thoracic aortic aneurysm is an expansion or ballooning of an aorta within your chest. This type of aneurysm is very rare. About 20% of cases are linked to family history. Symptoms of this type of aneurysm is hoarseness or difficulty swallowing due to the aneurysm growing and compressing nearby structures, sharp pain between the shoulder blades, most often in the aneurysm when the aneurysm ruptures or if it is about to. More often than not, there are no symptoms with thoracic aortic aneurysms. Most are discovered while being tested or for other reasons. Treatments for this would be regular monitoring of standard treatment for smaller sized aneurysms, and conventional surgery is an option if the risk for rupture is greater than the risk for operating, which is a lot of times the case for many people. So now we're going to go into cerebral aneurysms. A cerebral aneurysm is a weak or thin spot of blood vessel in the brain that balloons out and fills with blood. Causes of cerebral aneurysms include trauma or injury to the head, infection, tumors, and smoking. Again, most people don't feel symptoms for this, but some may include severe headaches, pain behind the eye, numbness, weakness, or paralysis on one side of the face, dilated pupils, vision changes, nausea and vomiting, change in mental status, loss of consciousness, and you can also experience some seizures. So next we'll talk about diagnosis. There's 3 things that can help you diagnose someone who is about to have an aneurysm and or had an aneurysm, and that is angiogram, ultrasounds, and CAT scans. So an angiogram is a dye test used to analyze the arteries or veins. An intracerebral angiogram can detect the degree of narrowing or obstruction of an artery or blood vessel in the brain, head, or neck. Also, you can get an ultrasound and a CAT scan, and a CAT scan show 3-dimensional relationships and soft tissues structures more clearly than an average X-ray. So there are treatments for this. A ruptured aneurysm is a medical emergency and requires medical attention immediately, as I said before. An unruptured aneurysm depends on the size and location. Often it will simply require regular 6-month checkups to monitor the size. Some unruptured aneurysms may require surgery. For abdomen aortic aneurysms, you can do an open repair. And with this open repair, you're making a large cut in the abdomen, and the weakened vessels is replaced with a graft made of man-made material. Endovascular stent grafting, this is another procedure that you can do, and this is done without making a large cut in your abdomen. The benefits of this is that the recovery is much faster. For thoracic aortic aneurysms, regular monitoring is for the standard treatment for smaller sized aneurysms. Conventional surgery is an open option if the risk for rupture is greater than the risk for operating. For cerebral aneurysms, often these types of aneurysms go unnoticed until they are ruptured. 2 surgical options are available for treatment of these. One would be a microvascular clipping, and this involves cutting off of the flow of blood to the aneurysm. A section of the skull is removed and the aneurysm is located. And the last option would be an endovascular embolization. So now we can go into talking about exercise. So there are a couple precautions when exercising with aneurysms. It's important to keep the client's blood pressure low if they are at high risk for rupturing an aneurysm. Keeping the heart rate below 100 beats per minute proves to be a safe and effective way of remaining in a safe zone with a client as to not cause too much stress on the blood vessel walls that it cannot handle. The goals of an exercise program for a client with an aneurysm would include increased endurance and strengthening the heart. This will aid in lower blood pressure and take pressure away from the artery walls that are already weakened. Increasing the joint range of motion is very important. Also, increase the ability to perform activities of daily living without risk of getting injured or rupturing an aneurysm. So to better help you guys understand aneurysms and exercise, I made a small case study that I can explain exercise prescriptions to you guys. So I used a woman, Connie, who is 56 years old with an abdominal aortic aneurysm. Connie is 5'4" and weighs 180 pounds. Her brother had a ruptured aneurysm at 45 years old that resulted in his death. Her blood pressure reads 124/84. Her HDL level is 35 and her LDL level is 140. Her FBG level is 115. She has been smoking heavily since she was in high school. She works a job that requires her to be on her feet all day. However, she is not in any kind of physical shape and becomes tired quickly. She also is diagnosed with Marfan syndrome. Connie is at moderate risk for cardiovascular problems because she is asymptomatic but presents more than 2 risk factors. Some of her risk factors include family history because yes, her brother suffered from ruptured aneurysm at age 45. Obesity, yes, her BMI is 30.89, which is greater than 30 and puts her at high risk. Activity, she moves a lot during the day, however, she is not getting the minimum recommended amount of physical activity. Blood pressure, her blood pressure reading is at normal level, so she's okay with the blood pressure. Cholesterol levels, since her LDL is 140, which is greater than 130, her HDL level is under 40, reading 35. Fasting glucose levels, since her glucose level is over 100, this puts her at risk. And smoking, yes, Connie smokes heavily. So now we'll talk about what kind of exercise testing would be best for Connie and how to go about them. So a medical clearance is necessary before starting any exercise prescription. A 6-minute walk test should be completed, as well as a modified bent knee push-up test will also be completed to assess dynamic endurance. This is an important test to complete because it will determine just how much endurance the client has currently and will not overstress the client to reach a particular number since it is determined by how much she or he can do. Also, we will be completing a 1RM test, and this will test the client's dynamic strength. So for Connie's exercise prescription, there's cardiovascular activity. Following the FIT principle, it is important to start with at least 3 days a week for cardiovascular activity. The intensity should be low to moderate, and it will be extremely important to monitor the client in order to keep her heart rate under 100 beats per minute, which can be hard to do if the client is not active. A minimum of 20 minutes per day should be completed and gradually increased to 30 minutes over time. Types of exercises the client could perform include walking at a comfortable pace on a treadmill, swimming in a pool, which would be a good exercise in order to not stress the joints as much, and slowly utilizing a bike ergometer could be chosen as well in order to have variety when the client chooses which she would like to do best. Another great form of training would be resistance training. Again, following the FIT principle, it is important to have frequency of 2 to 3 times a week. Depending on how comfortable the client feels with this type of training, you can go more or less. The intensity is low to moderate. 1 hour would be ideal to complete this type of training. The type of exercise utilizes in the particular exercise prescription should be only 40 to 50% of the client's 1RM. They should focus on major muscle groups. Instead of utilizing free weights, it would be safer to have the client use pin-selected machines. It is important to not fatigue the muscles. Next would be balance training. Balance should be completed 2 to 3 times per week. Again, the intensity should be completed at low to moderate levels. 20 minutes each day should result in significant balance improvements. A good type of exercise to utilize would be yoga. Yoga is soft on the joints and will help keep the blood pressure low. Well, hopefully I was able to inform you all who are watching on aneurysms and what a good exercise prescription would be for someone who is in risk of aneurysms.